What's up, Jacob?
Morning, man. How are you?
Good morning.
Oh, what's going on, Jacob?
Doing good, man. Just cold.
All
It
right.
is cold, actually.
Is it?
It's
Oh.
like 40 something, maybe like 45 where I am, man.
Oh shoot, that is cold, bro. Oof, it's tough.
All right. I just wanted to make sure I understood the criticism or the criticism from last time about potency, active and passive potency, and matter being eternal. Is potency a thing coming from Aquinas? I feel like that's coming from Aquinas.
No, Aristotle.
No?
Aristotle. I mean, Aquinas does talk about it, but yeah, Aristotle.
I thought it was some church father talking about potency.
Well, yeah, Aquinas is a Catholic church father. I mean, we're not Catholic, but yes, he does talk about potency. You're not incorrect there. However, that's Aristotelian metaphysics.
Do you not hold to Aquinas' potency? Do you hold it?
No. I mean, I don't disagree with Aquinas when he talks about like the argument of motion. I actually I presented to you his argument. But there's church fathers in our school of thought that agree with it as well. Hello, my love. Welcome to the panel.
Okay.
What's up?
What's up for me?
So just to make sure I get the argument right, is the argument that because matter is eternal, matter has the ability to change, this leads to an infinite regression and is not logical? Is that the argument?
It can't be eternal and be able to change at the same time. That's a contradiction.
Okay, so matter can't have potency and be eternal.
Correct.
Okay. When you say potency, what is entailed within potency?
The ability to change.
But that wouldn't include some things, right? Like anything that the Son of God did is not potency, right? When he is begotten eternally, or when
depends on what you mean from, and I'm assuming you're coming at it from our paradigm, like you're
from both of our paradigms, the Son of God takes on human flesh.
Okay, gotcha.
You know what I mean?
From our paradigm, so from our paradigm, right? If he takes on a human nature, right, which is a mode of existence, and he is existing in that mode in time, space, and matter, he's going to do actions that are going to be temporal, and his human nature is going to go through the same potency or change that we do because he's truly human. However, his divine nature doesn't have potency, nor does it go through like an intrinsic change like that either. Like it doesn't.
Okay, divine nature doesn't change, even though the divine nature assumes a human nature.
No, we don't believe that divine nature entered time, space, and matter. Like that's not what we would hold to.
I guess I'm confused. What takes on the human nature? The
person, and through the energies of God, through the act of God, would assume the human nature. So we don't believe that a person like which would be the hypostasis is the same or identical to the essence.
The nature, yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I understand that. So the person takes on the person has a divine nature, right?
Yes, of course.
Is that so?
The person of Jesus, yes.
The person, so the nature and the person are distinct but not separate, and then the person takes on a human nature as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the person does or does not change when it takes on a human nature.
No, in his divine nature doesn't change by assuming the human nature. No.
But the person's separate from the nature, right?
No, not separate. From what nature are you referring to? Divine nature? No.
The divine nature.
No.
You said the person and the divine nature are two different, are separate but distinct. Separate but not distinct.
No. The person of Jesus and the divine nature are not identical, but they're not separate either. They're distinct.
Yeah. And the person takes on the human nature, right?
Correct. Assumes the human nature. Yes.
So does the person change when the person takes on the nature?
No, it depends on what you mean by what is changing.
Like, I'm just trying to go with whatever potency means is where I'm going.
Yeah. No, the person does not change.
Yeah, why not?
Because the person still possesses the divine nature. The divine nature does not go through a change or an intrinsic change due to that.
Okay, so the divine nature doesn't change. I get that, but the person, does the person change?
Yeah, the person is grounded within the divine nature. So the person of Christ is a divine hypostasis, which subsists within and is grounded within the divine essence. And the divine essence does not change. If there's any change in the person, it would have to be within the divine essence. But the divine essence does not change just because he assumes the human body. Now, you can bring an argument as to why that could be the case, but no, he does not. Divine person does not change because
Okay, and if I did, the fallback would be, okay, the divine nature doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
I can give him an example there.
Okay, yeah, go
From
ahead.
scripture. And Jacob, I think you and I was it you and me talking right before Bear had to leave on Friday?
Yeah, yeah.
That was a
No, that
different
was
guy.
somebody else. Yeah, but he
Yeah,
came
that was
up
a
after
different
him.
Latter-day
Yeah.
Saint.
Oh, okay, yeah. If you go to Exodus chapter 24, well, let me first ask you this: do you believe the glory of God is created, like God's glory? You think that's created?
Probably not. No, well, definitely not. Almost certainly not.
Okay. Okay, so the glory of God is uncreated, right? We would consider the glory of God to be one of the energies.
Yeah,
That's another
energy
conversation.
essence distinction.
Yeah. Oh, but that's another. But I'm just trying to get you to understand what we're saying, just from like a really simplistic standpoint. So the glory of God is uncreated. When we go to Exodus 24, verse 16, it says, "And the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days." Now, the cloud is something that's created, right?
Hmm.
Okay. When the glory was in the cloud, in something created, did the glory of God change?
No.
Why not?
I don't know if I could give you a reason why not. It just doesn't
No,
seem like it would.
I mean, it's not that complex. Like, it's not a trick question. Like,
No,
why not?
I'm not sure if I know exactly why it doesn't. It just doesn't feel like there's any like
Why do
cause
you
for it
think
to
it doesn't?
change.
Why do you think
Um,
it doesn't?
I don't know. I don't actually have any. My thought process on this is going blank.
I mean, it's not that deep. It wouldn't change because just because it's resting in something doesn't mean now it's like going through some type of change and becoming that thing. Like it's just in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what Bear's trying to explain to you. It's like, I mean, just because the divine person of the Son takes on flesh doesn't necessitate now that that divine person changes into something new. Like that doesn't make
Okay.
any sense.
Yeah. The divine person is although it's distinct from the essence, that doesn't mean that they're separate or the person is not grounded within the essence. So if the
Okay.
person were to change, it would necessitate that the divine nature has to go through some sort of intrinsic change, which we hold to that it doesn't in the hypostatic union. Like it doesn't change. Now you could present it like an argument as to how that would have to mean
No,
it changes, but that's where people fail. They can't
Yeah.
really present one.
Okay. So then the way this would relate back to Latter-day Saint theology is, since we believe matter is eternal with God,
Mm-hmm.
and matter, would that entail that? So because we think matter is eternal with God, you then say, well, matter can change, therefore matter has potency, which leads to eternal regression.
Yeah, and then also if matter is a separate being from God and it's eternal, then that would necessitate a division, right? So there needs to be they're within space. They can't be eternal or transcend creation and then also be created at the same time. Like, like that is what ultimately leads to an infinite regression. Because like, where did everything start? Because if they were created, then who transcends them and creates them, and then is that being created or not? And then it just keeps going. If they're continuously created, then that's the infinite regression. There's no starting point. There needs to be a starting point that grounds everything.
When we say matter is eternal, what do you think we mean by that?
That it always existed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. In order for it to be eternal and always existing, it cannot have any potency. Otherwise, if it has potency, that means that in order for it to exist, it is contingent on something else in order to cause its existence.
Because it was in a previous state caused by previous state?
Well, I mean, there's nothing that has potency that caused itself to exist. Like,
well, wait. You wouldn't say God causes himself to exist, right? You would just say he just exists.
Yeah, he is existence. He's identical to existence. Yeah.
Is that not the same as just saying he exists? And
I
like
mean, it could. I mean, you could say he
necessarily.
exists, obviously, but what I'm trying to get away from, why I'm using that language, is he's not dependent on existence. Existence is not
Yeah.
something separate that he participates in, like we are. He grounds all existence because he is existence. He's identical to it.
There's also another issue that you have to look at too. And there's another reductio that comes with matter being created. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about last time too.
You mean matter being eternal?
I'm sorry, yeah, matter being
Okay.
eternal. Well, actually, I don't want to interrupt.
No,
There's
go ahead. I'm just trying to think about. I'm just trying to formulate the criticism properly so I can like look it up later, research it more.
I see.
Mainly because I'm not sure whether or not I'm not sure how potency of like how we see potency. I don't know of any like theologians or anything like that who talk about potency within our school of thought, or like how that poses a problem. So I've heard this once before, and I'm gonna try to get some more information on it.
No problem.
But that's really it. That's all.
Oh, he must have got a call.
Did you you want to finish asking? Because I didn't want to interrupt you guys.
I don't know how long
I think we answered his questions. He's just trying to trying to
did.
gather our paradigm so he can go critique it, which is cool.
That's correct. I just wanted to make sure I understood it.
Yeah.
So, and I've done that, I think, as best as I could for you guys.
All right,
Yeah, there's something I wanted to say to you as well, Jacob, and this is just something else for you to think about. So if matter is uncreated, is eternal, well, I guess just let me ask you this first. In your worldview, because I actually kind of don't know what you guys think about this. In your worldview, does matter is matter personal? Does it have intellect?
I don't know that we have doctrine on that. It could be. Depending on trying to think of how to explain it. So in Latter-day Saint theology, we use the term intelligence and sometimes the term matter interchangeably. Whatever the thing that builds up everything is, we'll either sometimes call it intelligence or matter. So in one school of thought, Latter-day Saints think that the spirit of man was formed by God out of intelligence, but had some sort of rationality before it was formed. And in another sense, sometimes they, so that's one school of thought. So in some sense, I think some people think, it does have some sort of something. Yeah, but I don't know that I could like show that from our doctrine.
Yeah,
well, DNC
the reason
93 is where you find that. So if you ever want to like find out like from our scripture exactly kind of what we have on this, look up Doctrine and Covenants section 93.
But it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that like matter has personhood in DNC 93.
No, it didn't say that. No, but I was just like that's what we have to go off of. Is DNC 93? It says intelligences are in the beginning with God, right? And then it says element, and that's what it uses in that section. Element, whatever that is cannot be created, and that's what in that section is referring to eternal matter. Just called the element.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure this out. So, I mean, both of you guys are Latter-day Saints. I'm trying to figure this out. So, does matter in you guys' worldview? Does it have cognizance? Is it a creator?
Is it a creator? No, it's not a creator. So
It's not a person, right?
No. If you go to DNC 93, real quick, because this is going to answer a lot of your questions. It says that all truth is basically put into the realm in which it is by God, right? That wasn't verbatim because I don't have that verse memorized. But everything that is as it is has been put that way because God has put it that way. So therefore, we believe in eternal matter, but that matter has been able to do nothing outside of God organizing it and putting it in the situation that it's in.
Exactly. Exactly. So okay. So then this is an actual problem for you guys, and the reason why is because if matter doesn't have personhood or cognizance, intelligence, if it's not a person, but it's also eternal, then the problem arises because in your worldview, matter has telos or telos. It has purpose. It has a goal, like because God in your worldview uses it to create things. So it has telos. It has purpose basically. But if it has purpose, then that means that it had to have come from something. Somebody had to have created it, because everything with purpose, or like all of that comes from a creator. But this is the reason why we don't say that God is created, because all purpose derives from him, because he's personal. But if matter is eternal, but it's not personal, and it has telos, it has purpose, then it had to have been created. It's impossible for it to be eternal.
Does
That
it
makes no sense.
necessarily have purpose if it's uncreated, or could it not have purpose unless God gives it purpose?
No. In your worldview, it has purpose because you said that God used it to create everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it has purpose through him.
I mean, it doesn't matter if it has purpose through him or the fact of the matter is it has purpose. So it has to be created.
Instead of, if I could just tell you, this is our worldview, right? Like the bedrock of foundation of reality that we believe in is there just is element and there just is intelligences. Like that's, if you go back for Latter-day Saints, that's it. We don't believe that something created them. Now I can see how you coming from your worldview would say, well, you have to have someone above that. Again, that's kind of like what y'all believe. But you can't say in our worldview we have to believe in someone beyond that.
No. I'm saying no. I'm saying
Talking
it's
about
a
logical
reductio.
elements of the position.
Yeah, I'm saying it's a like okay. For instance, do you believe that God has purpose?
That God has purpose?
Yeah.
In what he does? Yeah, he only does stuff because he has a purpose to do it.
No. I'm not saying in what he does. I'm saying fundamentally, do you believe God has purpose?
We believe that he states. Wait, is necessary being and has purpose the same thing? Because necessary being would say exists in all realities, right?
What I mean here is, for instance, if God has some type of purpose or like some type of objective, that means that there's something prior to him because somebody gave him that.
Wait, why does it have to come from outside of him?
Because
we don't believe that.
Because telos encompasses purpose. Telos just means purpose, goal, design, something like, for instance, if you look at anything in creation, in the created order, it all has purpose because it's designed a particular kind of way to do something. That's what I mean by that. So, but in order for that to happen, that has to come from the mind of a creator. You can't give yourself purpose. That doesn't make any sense. So
I think by your definitions, we would agree with you.
Okay, well then that's the reductio. Because if you're saying that matter was used to create, that means that that's what its purpose was. But if it has purpose in that aspect, that means it's created. It can't be eternal.
Well,
somebody had to give it that, is what I'm trying to say.
So basically, I mean, I don't mind saying this. The rationale I've come to is that more or less this is just like, this is the what's it called? The bare fact, right? For us, at least this is how I understand it. Is just the brute fact. Thank you. Of like, we just believe in fundamentally there's is intelligence and there's is element, right? And that just is existence. And then God, being the most powerful intelligence, gave purpose and meaning to what was by organizing it into what we see.
Exactly. You're proving my point. God is the one who gives purpose. He doesn't just, like now God has discursive knowledge. He goes from unreasoning something to then we don't believe that. So he doesn't have telos in the same way, or he doesn't have telos in that aspect. But you're saying, and this is the entailment of what you're saying. If you're saying, this is why I kept asking you, does matter have personhood? If it has personhood, then it would be, like you said, a second God that also creates. But if it doesn't have personhood and it doesn't have rationale, it doesn't have intellect or cognizance, but it has telos, that means that somebody had to give it that. And if somebody had to give it that, that means that there's something prior to it. But you're telling me that the thing or the person that's using that matter is God. So that means that God logically has to have come before matter. So matter can't be eternal. It makes no sense.
Wait, does it? I'm trying to now apply this view to your view of how the sun. Do you guys believe in like eternal generation?
Yes.
So the Son eternally eternally begotten by the Father, and so the Son eternally has grounding in the Father, right?
Its hypostatic property is grounded within the Father. Yeah.
How is that?
Well, the Son is personal.
Okay, so the Son being personal gets you around the fact that grounding it comes from the Father eternally.
Yeah, but what's the issue with that? And I don't know.
Oh, I'm not saying there's an issue. I'm saying I feel like that could be applied here. You could say that that matter eternally has its purpose from the Father.
The difference here is when we're talking about the hypostatic properties, like of Jesus, who is he grounded within the Father as far as his hypostasis. Their being is still the same. It's not a separate being. They're sharing the same existence. We're just talking about a relation, like an origin of their relation. But you guys are talking about different beings. Like you're talking about matter and God, which are separate beings. That's where this kind of starts to collapse, and it leads to an infinite regress. That's the problem.
If I could, I really wanted to, because this is what we were talking about Friday, and I think you had to fall off.
I'm gonna hop. Thanks for the help.
All right, man. See you later.
Understanding your view. Have a good one, guys.
Yep.
God bless, bro.
God bless, bro.
Yeah, and thanks for being charitable, right? Obviously we disagree, and there's probably some sort of salvation aspect of my part where y'all think I'm not saved, but y'all been very gracious with answering our questions and stuff, so thank you for that.
No problem.
But my question here is, I wanted to hop on because Jacob was asking a lot of the questions I was on Friday, and I think we were getting somewhere on that. You said that it's in the hypostasis that the incarnation happens, not in the nature, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the hypostasis is what assumes the human nature.
So the hypostasis assumes this accidental property, but that's not change, right?
What accidental property are you referring to? Like you're saying nature is an accidental property?
Well, yeah, so the hypostasis assumes a nature it did not always have, or do you believe it always had it in the
no. It assumes the nature, but an accidental property would be in reference to like a nature. So like this is not, the human nature is not an accidental property to the like divine nature, for example. Like they're not mixed, but they are united within the hypostasis, because the hypostasis subsists within the two.
And so but this is the weird thing, right? So I feel like it's separated to say it's only in the hypostasis, and then whenever we talk about the hypostasis, we fall back on, but that's basically the same thing as the divine nature and can't change.
Okay.
So like, how can we say something new is assumed by the hypostasis, but the hypostasis does not assume a new property or assume a new something?
I gave the example earlier, read it. I don't know if you were here, and it was you that we were talking about, that I was talking with last time. I thought it was Jacob. But in Exodus 24, the glory of God is uncreated. You and I both agreed to that, but it says, and the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. When the cloud covered it, did the uncreated glory of God change?
Well, I mean, you could say it's inside the cloud, right?
Right, but did it change? That's what I'm saying.
Well, yes, it's accidental properties or its Cambridge properties would have changed.
That's a Cambridge listen, brother, a Cambridge property, like that would mean a Cambridge change. Like a Cambridge change is not an actual intrinsic change. We're as classical theists are going to say that there's not an intrinsic change just because the person assumes the human nature, right? So the only way for the person to change is if there's an intrinsic change within the divine nature. We don't believe the divine nature goes through an intrinsic change just because he assumes the human nature. And like in Amin's example, the glory of God, which you believe is uncreated, doesn't go through an intrinsic change just because the cloud is covering it. It's silly.
Yeah, bro, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, and then if you're saying that God, like, bro, that makes no sense, dude. Not to be, rude or anything, but like, bro, come on.
Yeah, that means you are changing. Your essential properties as a human is changing just by putting on clothes. That's crazy, dude.
Well, so again, you said did it change? I gave away it changed, and then you say, well, that's not intrinsic, so that's fine.
Well, that's what we're referring to, bro. You got to understand our position that we're going to go ahead and affirm that from our perspective, like a Cambridge change is going to be okay. Like we're okay with God having active potency. We're just saying he doesn't have any passive potency, meaning that he doesn't go through any intrinsic change. Like he's not affected by anything else where his divine nature would go through a change. So
when the Son, I'm trying to be very careful of this, when the divine Son, God the Son, assumes the property or assumes the nature of incarnation, of humanity, right? Mm-hmm. There's no change in the divine Son for having a new nature at this point.
No.
But then what undergoes, like, why is there now there's incarnation, now there's not, if there's no change at all?
There's no intrinsic change within his divine nature unless you can present one.
Well, so I guess, is that just like the way to safeguard the divine nature, to say, like, I'm just trying to explain, like, understand it. So there's the divine nature and there's the hypostasis of the Son. They're not exactly identical. So something can happen to the divine Son. He can assume a nature. It doesn't affect the divine nature at all. But yet something did happen in the hypostasis, because now there's two natures, but that's not a change.
Dude, we can hold to God temporally affecting creation. He can act within creation. That doesn't mean he goes through an intrinsic change if he does that. So the act of assuming a human nature as a person through his energies does not automatically mean that he went through an intrinsic change in his divine nature. If you believe that is the case, then you can present an argument as to how that would necessitate that. But that's what I'm asking for. It's like you would need to be the one to demonstrate how there would be an intrinsic change just because God acted upon creation.
Well, so it feels like in the Bible and just in Christian history, there's a direct difference, or there's a clear difference between him acting in the world and him saying, "Now I am incarnated in the world." Like, would you not agree that
why would that be a different act? Like, why would that be? Those are all acts. Those are all, like, I don't understand. Why would that be different? Like when God spoke to Moses and it had a beginning and an end, right? When he spoke temporally, right? Why would that be different from an act of assuming human flesh?
Well, because, I mean,
you're breaking up, brother. You're breaking up, Rita. Just to let you know, brother. You got bad service, so we can't hear what you're saying.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, so I would just say, because one act is said to be connected to the hypostasis of the Son, right? And all the other ones are just God acting in the world. You could say it's his divine energies, but one is specifically said, this is actually the...
Yeah, bro. You broke up again, brother. But yeah, look, here's the thing. In eternity, as far as the incarnation goes, the three persons are within one act. That's why we believe they're one being, right? So they just play a role as far as the incarnation. But as far as like how it manifests temporally, it's going to appear to be separate. Yeah, the Son is the one that assumes the human nature.
Yeah, and this is why we have EED, the energy essence. The key word is distinction. Because the energies are distinct from the essence, the energies can enter creation while the essence doesn't. But just as Bear is saying, the energies being distinct doesn't entail separation. Like that doesn't logically follow.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're getting like hung up. Um, you, it's not complicated, but I think you're making it complicated.
Yeah, I mean, like what it is he's trying to find a reason as to, and I don't mean this in a bad way. Read it. I mean, I know you're trying to present an argument, which is what you were supposed to do, right? But he's trying to find the reductio as to how it would need to be an intrinsic change just because of the incarnation. But that wouldn't make sense, because that means that an intrinsic change would happen every time God acts upon creation, right? Why would there be a special rule of an incarnation would mean there's an intrinsic change in the divine nature just because he acted upon that incarnation, but not anything else, right? That would just be special pleading, unless you can like logically like substantiate that.
Well, I mean, so I just think the incarnation where it says this is now connected to the hypostasis of the Son, and it wasn't something else before. Like, I don't see how we could not say that's a change without just
because the Son assuming a human nature is an act. It's a divine act from eternity that gets temporally manifested, right? It's just an energy, right? So just because God acts and then incarnates within creation, just like he does everything else, just like when he created the world and created Adam and was part of the Red Sea and did all of those things, doesn't now mean the incarnation could be included in that list. Doesn't now mean that the divine nature went through an intrinsic change. God caused the change within creation, not the other way around.
Okay, so that makes sense now. So I kept hearing y'all say like energies and stuff, and I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense in a way which I didn't agree with it, but I can see how you can make sense of that with like the action. But you believe the incarnation was just an energy as well.
Of course. Yeah. We don't believe the divine nature entered creation. That's all. The hypostasis through his energies is what assumed the human nature. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, and so now I guess my question would be this, and this is something that, I've tried to ask Catholics about, which obviously you're not. Mm-hmm. Does God the Son, the hypostasis, does he experience or live any of the experience or life of the person of Jesus?
Does he? Sorry, reword that again or repeat it again? Sorry.
So Jesus in the Gospels, right? He was born, he grew, he learned, he ate, he slept, he suffered for our sins, all these things. Did the hypostasis of the Son, did he actually live those experiences?
Of course.
Or like how did that go about?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he experienced it, yes, as a human.
Okay. And so for the Son, him now being connected through the incarnation, living these experiences, that's not any kind of change for him saying,
no,
like, I physically suffered for your sins as God the Son.
No, because now he took on a second nature. So now the way the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, they're modes of existence. They share the same essence, so the same existence. But the three persons are distinct, and their experience of their existence is going to be distinct because they are distinct from each other. So the Son knows he's not the Father knows he's not the Son, etc. So that the mode of existence is going to be distinct. So when the Son assumes the human nature, which is another mode of existence, then he is the one that's going to experience that human experience.
Yes, I understand, but so would that, I guess this is the weird thing, because again, you can just say, well, it's in his human nature, but if God the Son's experiencing it, does that not now mean like he has some sort of temporal succession saying, well, I've yet to experience the pain of the atonement.
Yeah, but that would be via the human nature. Yeah, that would be in the mind of the human. We believe he holds two minds. So in the faculty of the mind that he possesses, yes, he's going to, the second person is the one that's experiencing that thought process. Yes.
And there's also a way for you to look at this too, and this is also why we believe in theosis. And I'm not to get too deep, but and Bear, correct me if I'm, because sometimes even when I try to explain this,
well, they hold to theosis too, just a more radical view of theosis.
Okay.
But their doctrine of theosis does come from like our view, but it just becomes a little bit more elevated. Like,
yeah, we agree with y'all that the Bible teaches that, but obviously our worldviews take that different directions.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So we believe in things called like theandric operations within the Son, and from my understanding, we would categorize that through some form of theosis. So, for instance, like let's talk about the passage about the wisdom situation in Luke. In one passage of the Bible, it says Jesus grew in wisdom and stature. But in First Corinthians, I think it's First Corinthians 1:24, it says Jesus is the wisdom of God. Well, how can that be? Like how can it be both? Well, from our understanding, where theosis comes in is that the divine nature was energizing like the flesh or the I don't because I don't want to say it and it sounds like a hair because you have to be very careful how you word these things. But the divine nature would be quote unquote energizing like that human nature. So wisdom, all of that comes from God. But remember, Christ is a divine person. So this is how you can have both at the same time. Well, how can and also to be fair, in that passage it says Christ grew in wisdom and stature. So it's also referring to just the fact that he just grew up, like he got taller, like he was in a physical human body. The flesh wasn't fake, it was real. So, but we would just believe where stuff like that is concerned, that through theosis, the divine nature was energizing that human nature. And this is why we can say that Jesus knew everything. But at the same time, the scripture can say that he grew in wisdom. Like it's not a contradiction for us. Um, if you grant what this, I mean, and this is what the scripture says. Like if you're doing an internal critique, then this isn't a problem for us. Like we can logically explain all of this. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure you understood that. Like I know I said a lot, and if it doesn't make any sense, let me know, and I'll try to make it make more sense.
No, y'all been very gracious, and I will say this, right? From the conversation with y'all versus everything I've studied and talked with Catholics about, the Thomistic, understanding, this seems a lot more understandable than in the answers given. Basically, they just have to say, yeah, these things are this way, but we can't explain it, and y'all just say, well, energies, and it makes a little bit more sense, right? I will say that, even though I still have some qualms with certain things, if I had to be classical theist, I would probably go with the energies version over the Thomistic.
Hey, W, yeah, let's go. That's a bomb right there. Let's go.
And also read it. You better hope EED is correct, because EED is one of the best ways that we know God exists. Because if his essence doesn't enter creation, and we only like, how would we know he exists except through his energies?
Yeah.
Think about it. If there is no energy essence distinction, then how do we know God is real? Well, we know God is real through the energies that we experience here on Earth, like appearing like you guys were talking about the burning bush or the other energetic manifestations. So basically, how EED, how we define it is, trying to like put in a way where it makes sense. Like so there's like a distinction from God's like how he conceals himself in creation as opposed to how he reveals himself in creation. The concealed idea of God, that would be the essence, because no one can know it. And that's not a problem. If you're a theist, then you have to agree. Like, if you can understand God like 100%, then he's not God. He transcends certain things. So that's fine. No one who's a theist should disagree with that. But if he's so far, if he's so far above us to where we can't understand him in that particular aspect, then how do we know that he's real? Well, that's through his energies. So in the burning bush, that's an energy of God. It's he manifests himself in creation, but this is why we believe there's a distinction between the energies and that's why it's called energy essence distinction. But the distinction does not entail composition. Just because there's distinctions doesn't mean that you're like in parts now or that you're a composite. This also, Rita, is why we don't say Christ is 100% man and 100% God. We say there's a distinction in the natures. The reason we say that is because if you start using percentages, that actually does entail composition, because you only use percentages for things that are composite. So if there is no energy essence distinction, how do you know God is real?
Well, I mean, in the creed, doesn't it just say he's homoousios with God, homoousios with man? It doesn't even say fully God, fully man, right? In the creed.
Yeah, but that's not telling you anything. It doesn't tell you the mechanism in which that's true.
Well, true. I was just saying, like, I think it's more of a modern thing to say 100%, 100%. Because I think in the creed back then it was just say he's homoousios with both, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, I mean, like again, like that's not a issue for us per se. Like we hold to some form of perichoresis. Like well, that's a different conversation. I don't want to get too deep into this, but yeah, like Yeah, you need EED. If you don't have it, then that's a big problem.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough because from their worldview, they do believe in essentially polytheism, right? Like there's multiple gods. So I don't know, man. Like polytheism would need to first be explained, from your guys' worldview, and how that doesn't lead to a logical contradiction at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, so I wouldn't say we believe in polytheism, because the way that you read our scriptures, all divinity is sourced from the Father, right? So basically, a lot of what people who hold to the monarchical view of the Trinity, we could accept, but we just say that,
but is the Father created, or is he not created?
No, he's not, right?
Again, so he would be the first cause.
It's not a monolith. He would be, so he's uncreated in the fact that he's an eternal intelligence, right? As are we all, which obviously you probably, would have an issue with that.
But we do. But what do you mean by eternal intelligence? Like, does he have a beginning?
No, right. So I mean, if you go to my profile here, one of my early latest videos I put is Joseph Smith explaining this in one of his discourses, the King Follett discourse, and he says, look, God is on a self-existent principle, right? And he's like, and so are all of us, right? So he's showing that all of us
matter?
Are eternal.
But you guys said matter is eternal as well.
Yes.
So right? Is matter also self-existent?
Yeah, it's uncreated. That's how he was using it.
So there you go. So that would be another being that's eternal.
Well, yeah, but again, we would just say it was just there, right? But I guess you're saying there's an issue with that. So we just say that there is intelligences in matter, and that matter could do nothing of itself, and that God organized it into everything we see now, right? It was just, there was no universe as we see it, and then God said, hey, we're going to make everything for the plan of salvation to roll forth, and he did.
Yeah.
Right. That's what.
The problem is once again, this all boils down to like the first cause, like this idea that there could be things like matter that have potency, but then be eternal and always existing. That brings a lot of that would eventually lead to an infinite regress. Like, how do you explain this? Because if the Father didn't cause the matter to exist, then which one is the first cause? Is it the matter? Is it the Father? And how do you ground that?
I mean, we would say neither are the first cause in the act of bringing one forth. But I would say, as it says in D&C 93, which is, you could go look that up, that it says that everything that's put into action or anything, or into its realm, was put there by God. So the first the first movement was done by God, but not the first, he didn't bring about out of nothing matter. We don't believe that. But hey, my wife just tried to call.
All right, man. See you later,
so
man. God bless. All right, man. See you later, bro. Yeah, Mormons are a lot easier to talk to.